Alright, so part 2 of my interview with Chris Chang, Facebook software engineer. If you missed the first part, the link will be first in the top of the description. And if you want to see more of these videos, if you want to see me interview more people, I really enjoy interviewing people. It's some of my favorite videos to make. Please be sure to leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, all that stuff really helps out the channel. And I just want to cut straight to the video. I don't know if I'm going to have a third part to this video yet. If I do, then you will see it in the coming week. But if not, then enjoy the finale. And if it's not the finale, well, you gotta subscribe and to watch more. Anyways, cutting to Chris. Peace. YouTube channel, obviously that's been pretty successful so far. I'd say how long, you haven't been doing it that long. You have a few thousand subscribers already. Well underway. I like the videos a lot. I like your sense of humor, and I appreciate the stories. They're very practical. They just tell you what it is. What made you decide to start your YouTube channel? Favorite YouTubers? What was your inspiration? What are your goals with the channel?
Yeah, so I think having a YouTube channel is really good for, I guess, your personal brand. And I actually don't really like talking about tech that much. So when I first started, I just thought all the videos were super cringe and nobody's gonna watch this. But turns out a lot of people have been watching it. And then some of the recent videos I've made were kind of memey, just for humor. But in general, I just wanted to have some sort of internet branding, just reach a lot of people. And I think that's one of the most valuable things from YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Do you think YouTube, even small YouTube channels, relatively compared to like Jomatech, so when I say like you're a decent size, but do you think that YouTube channels help in, say, the job application process? Do you think it's would you put if you were to apply to a new company, new top tech company, would you put your YouTube channel on your resume?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, you mentioned YouTubers that inspire me. Obviously, Joma, Tech Lead, Mayuko. I think those are some of the most OG CS YouTubers. Oh yeah, CS Dojo, that guy. I guess those were kind of the inspirations for me to start a YouTube channel. Oh yeah, and Jarvis. He's been doing different kinds of videos now, but those were the OG YouTubers that started doing the CS content. But they've definitely been really inspirational. Sorry, what was your question?
No, that was just who inspired you? Why did you get into it? And would you put it on your resume if you were to apply to a new top tech company?
Okay, yeah, I think I would definitely put it on my resume. Just because it gives recruiters a sense that you have some sort of, it's kind of like being an entrepreneur. You want to take initiative, you want to build your own brand, you want to reach a large audience. Yeah, I think it's definitely something that shows that you've taken initiative to do something. And also, if you build out projects or products, you can always share it with people, versus if you don't have a YouTube channel or don't really have an audience, if you build something, nobody's really going to use it, and that just feels bad. So I hate building things and then having nobody use it. So I think having an audience really allows you to showcase your work and show it off to people. They can actually use it, whereas if you're just on your own, you don't really have an audience, it's very difficult to get people to use whatever you built. And I hate just building projects just for the sake of building it, just because it's a cool idea. Yeah, I think that's also one of the big reasons why I started YouTube, and why I think it's probably important, or it's beneficial for you to put it on your resume.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. Have you made any connections so far with YouTube? Have you met anyone? Well, I guess you met me, but have you met anyone else in a tech company? Have you connected maybe with any of the bigger YouTubers out there?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different small YouTubers. I think we kind of watch each other's channels, and then they've definitely reached out. So I did a collab with Richard. I think you've seen that, and also it's on my YouTube channel. But in general through YouTube, no one super big, but it's just been like the little guys, and then we're trying to grow together, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, I mean that's how you do it. Sorry.
Okay.
One question that so I was in this leadership committee sort of thing. It was an institute at my old university, and it was me and 20 kids, and part of the institute, they threw a bunch of money behind it, so we would get to talk to these really awesome people every week, and we would have to come up with interview questions for them. One of my favorite interview questions that always stumped the person we were asking was, what was the worst piece of advice that you have received in your career thus far?
Worst piece of advice. I need to think about this for a bit.
Take your time.
Honestly, I think the worst piece of advice would be, I think any advice could be very bad for you. I have a strong opinion on people giving you advice. Sometimes, like, if you're seeking the right answer, let me put it a different way. Sometimes if you're seeking an answer that you kind of already have a subconscious idea of, you're only going to listen to the advice that people tell you that you already agree upon, you already yourself agreed upon. Because I think in general, a lot of people are going to tell you a lot of conflicting advice. Like, they're going to say, oh, don't do masters or do masters. Some people are going to tell you, oh, school doesn't matter, grades don't matter. But everybody has a different opinion. I don't think there's really one right answer. You just need to do what's best for yourself, or what you think is best for yourself. So I think listening to advice, just for the sake of listening to advice or getting advice, is useless. Because you probably already deep inside know what you want to do, so I think you should just go and do that. If that makes sense. But obviously for very obvious things like, oh, should I study for a test, the answer is always probably going to be yes, right?
Yeah.
Given that there's nothing else in your schedule.
No, yeah, I actually really agree with that. And I mentioned earlier how when I was first getting into all of this, I listened to a lot of YouTube videos while I was walking around and such. And I stopped that after I felt like things were starting to get repetitive. Because I was like, all right, well, I could listen to this dude give me advice all day, but it's just distracting me from thinking about the project that I'm working on.
Yeah, exactly. I think you should focus more on the execution. Because at a certain point, no amount of advice is going to change yourself internally. You just need to go out and do it. Otherwise, you're just going to be listening to advice forever, or reading those self-help books forever and whatnot, and actually never doing it.
Exactly, yeah. Part of the reason that I decided not to do that major in philosophy was I read a lot of philosophy, and still do. I'm still really interested in it. But a lot of the philosophy says, don't do philosophy, go out and do something with your life. And for the philosophy geeks that are listening to this, I'll use the technical terms. The Stoics, who were ancient Greek and Roman philosophers, made the distinction between the philosopher with a pen and the philosopher with a sword, something roughly according to that. And the philosopher with a pen just sat around and wrote about philosophy all day. The philosopher with a sword knew what was right and wrong, and knew the ethics, and knew the philosophy behind why he was making his decisions, but he used that to go out and do things with his life. So I made the decision in my head. It sounds very grandiose. You're just picking a major, kid, but in some sort of way, I decided to be the philosopher with a sword. I would use my philosophy in other fields as opposed to just sitting down and being a philosopher with a pen. So that might be interesting. I find a lot of people who are interested in philosophy and computer science. yeah, a lot of like randomly I'll be watching or reading or doing something with computer science, and the person will mention how they also have a major in philosophy, or they also read these ancient texts, and I'm like, that's cool. There's a lot of overlap. I'm a part of that club.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've seen a lot of people with philosophy backgrounds in software engineering. I think they're pretty related because philosophy is based on logic and computer science is also really based on logic.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely an interesting correlation. Let's see. Other questions that I have. Speaking of philosophy, when it comes to college, I don't know about the University of Waterloo, but in America, there's a lot of liberal arts colleges, so those focus on kind of a well-rounded education. So your first 1.5 to 2-ish years are basically just spent entirely core classes, they call them, and those classes are English, and then you have to take maybe chemistry or like a bio type deal, and then you have to take philosophy and ethics and all of these different things, and you have different requirements that are meant to make you a well-rounded student, a free thinker, and really just give you like a formal liberal arts education. So in the University of Waterloo, did you have that? Because we also have tech schools, STEM schools, Stevens Institute of Technology and New Jersey Institute of Technology. Those are both ones near me, where they don't have that liberal arts core. They just have straight engineering math for 4 years. What was University of Waterloo like, and what do you think about the two options, given that you've seen people on the other side now?
Yeah, so there's really no liberal arts core or any sort of courses that you need to take. Well, not many actually. There's not really an option for too many electives. You still have to just take your core computer science, math, engineering courses. I think they introduced a requirement where you have to take 2 communications courses, like public speaking, writing, or something like that. I don't really know too much, but back when I was in school, it was only 1 communication course for me, and the electives that we had to take, I don't remember taking too many. I think there's only like a couple, like less than 5. But yeah, they don't really focus on that. But I think for the long-term success, it may be better to take some of those courses just so you have a wider breadth of knowledge and you can practice some of your other skills besides just coding, math, and technical things.
Yeah, no, that's definitely valid. One thing that I kind of struggle with is time. Not in the form of time management. I'm actually very good at time management. When I'm sick, so the past couple of days, my time management gets all loopy. I can't focus well. I keep going on my phone. So as of now, I'm currently beating myself up over lack of time management. But I know generally speaking, I have good time management. What I stress about is not having enough time or wasting time. So it's, say, last week I took a trip shark fishing with my friends for 6 days, and it was a lot of fun. It's awesome. I want to do it again. I've done it before. But during that week, just at random points, I'll be like, damn, I could have built a project this week. I could have grinded more algo expert problems this week or Sweet Careers problems this week. Let's not mention the competition. But what do you think about that? The people that you've worked with at Facebook, are they diehard? Do they just spend all their time doing software engineering, or do they have room for a life? And in the way that they have room for a life, is that once they get into Facebook, or they have the kind of relaxed life more, or can they also take some more time as they build up their initial career so that they could get into one of those companies?
Yeah, so for me, I think I guess like I struggle with this just like you do. I think it is very difficult to stop thinking about work, or like, oh, if you go out and do something fun, you could always be doing something more productive. And I guess like I still have trouble with that, and I don't think I have any really good advice for that because when I was in school, I kind of just was glued in the library, just working or preparing for interviews. I did waste a lot of time in the sense that sometimes we'd just be sitting there like with a group of friends and then we just start chatting and wasting time instead of studying. So we don't really get any study time or any fun time. It's kind of like in between and you get neither. That was one thing that I really hated and I want to cut out more of from my life. And I think I've done that pretty well in the past few years. But there are many moments like that for me. So I think it's normal, and that's all I'm going to say. I don't have any solution there. But yeah, it's totally normal to just feel like that because there's always something more productive you could be doing, and you can always beat yourself up. In terms of like other people that I see working, I think a lot of people, I would say most people working at these big tech companies do have a life. Their work hours aren't super strict. It's pretty flexible. And if you do want to work hard and get promotions faster, things like that, you do have the opportunity to. So if you want to stay glued to your computer all weekend long working, you can do that. But at these big companies, I just say majority of people just have their own lives outside of work, things like that. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, fair enough. So the answer basically is, I don't know, man, same.
Yeah, I don't know, man, same. Exactly. I have no good answer for that. But I think like one more thing. I just think corporate life, you have more room to just relax. Like you have weekends, right? Those are dedicated for you to just spend time with your family or on your own or whatever you want to do. But then for school, you're kind of always under the gun. There's like more assignments you could do. There's more you can study. Weekends, everybody's just studying, it seems like. So yeah, I feel like there's better structure working corporate versus when you're in school. I don't know if it's the same with you, but that was my experience.
Well, I don't have any corporate experience. I've done one internship, and it was for digital marketing with a small startup, and it was unpaid, and I basically just did like very basic Adobe Premiere edits all day and did some Facebook ads management for them, which was kind of crazy because, I mean, me and another intern was the entire marketing division of a startup with like millions of dollars in venture capitalists, like money funding them. And then they launched their product maybe 6 months after I left. And they were like, I wonder why we don't have that many users. It's like, well, maybe it's because the only marketing you did was by 2 interns that you didn't even pay for a few months.
That's actually hilarious. Damn. I guess I guess that's a good way to lose VC money and cut your runway short. But yeah, that's actually pretty exciting. But like I said, at startups, you just get way more responsibility.
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility, especially for a kid who started to learn marketing like 2 months before he started that internship.
Yeah, but it's a good learning experience for you. I guess maybe not so much for the company.
Oh yeah, and now I now on my resume, yeah, let's get your opinion on this. Sometimes I want to call it like a data analyst internship or a data science internship, just because I did work with a lot of the data from the user base to make it into a marketing campaign. I know that's not really what a data analyst or data scientist does, but I feel like it sounds a lot better than digital marketing intern. So I guess the real question for you is, what's the line? How blurry is the line on internships and resumes? Like, do you fudge the truth a little bit, or do you stick pretty firm to what is reality? Ideally, and this is kind of my plan, is to have so much real stuff that I don't even put that on my resume because it's kind of irrelevant at that point. So the real answer to this question is you shouldn't even have to fudge the truth. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think listing out your responsibilities, you should always stay truthful just because that's exactly what you did. But like the title, I guess I feel like it's okay to change it just because if you honestly think you're doing more data science work, then why not just put data science intern? I know a lot of people have done that before. They just changed their titles before, just because they think their work was suited for a better title. But yeah, the title is really just a label you put. What you've actually done is the experience you carry, right?
You're actually a janitor at Facebook. You just say you're a software engineer.
Yeah, you got me. I just clean the floor. Clean data.
When you look back on college and Facebook and all of that, if you could do it over, like, what advice would you give to yourself 5 years ago? What would you change if you could do it all over again?
I'd probably work on more projects on the side, not out of a hobby, just so I can build it end to end and launch it and try to get paying customers for it. I think that's always valuable. I did work on a lot of like hackathon projects, but those were really half-assed and like BSy. Never really fully completed them. Never really launched them and polished them. So I think that's probably the number one advice I'd give myself.
Okay.
Yeah, especially after the point where I got a big name internship, I kind of just dicked around. I didn't really do a lot of super productive things.
When it comes to those projects, specifically for internships, because I could understand how it might be a little bit different if you're applying to full-time roles, you might want a little more focus. But for internships, should your projects be more exploratory, or should you try and fit yourself into a niche? For me, for example, I'm taking the exploratory route. I just did some front-end stuff, did a pathfinding visualizer, classic project, but I had a lot of fun doing it. Learned a lot. So what I want to work on next is I want to work on more back-end stuff, so I want to build a REST API, work with a database. I'm probably going to do that in the form of a to-do app because I hate every to-do application that I've ever used, so I just want to build my own because I want the simplest to-do application. It's so simple, I don't know how it just doesn't exist yet, so I know it'll be pretty simple to build, pretty simple to do the back end for. Point being, I did a front end project. Now I'm doing a back end project. I've played around with Kaggle and machine learning. I'd like to do a little bit more into that before I think it's really substantial enough to stamp it on my resume. So for projects, do you think they can be more exploratory for the internships? And if not, does that kind of change when you get into full-time positions?
I think for internships, having exploratory projects is the best way to go, actually, just because you can get more projects on your resume and list them out. But if you want to build like a project for real, so what I meant earlier, like the advice to my older self is, I would have wanted to spend more time building a fully fledged project instead of some BS internship projects that were just used to get my job. But I would only have done that after I've gotten the bigger name jobs. But for the beginners, before they get that like really good job they want, I think doing all these exploratory projects are really good for your resume, just so you get a bunch of projects on your resume, fill it up.
Yeah, that's kind of something. It's a little bit more philosophical, but something Jordan Peterson, who I really like, I'm reading his book right now. I don't know have you heard of him?
Yeah, of course. He's from Toronto, University of Toronto, right?
He is University of Toronto. He made quite the name for himself in Canada a few years back. I don't know how big that was in Canada. But I like his books, and one thing that he talks about is how, like, you want to change the world, but you don't even keep your room clean. You got to start small and from there build up. And then another thing he's spoken about, which really hit me, was you can't denigrate institutions if you're not doing something better than them. So in that, it means you want to in high school, I took a very like, oh, I'm kind of like above high school. Like, this is BS. I could do this with two hands tied behind my back. And I could have, but I didn't. I got like B's because I was just BSing it the whole time. something I realized when I got to college was, all right, maybe one day I'll change the education system. Sure, let's make that my grand life goal. But until a day comes that I am genuine, like I am better than all of this stuff, and it's not just me thinking I am, I should probably just like play by the rules of the game. So you kind of mentioned that in a way of, yeah, go build your awesome project, but first, like, prove to yourself that you can get to that top company in the same way that right now I'm focused on getting a good GPA and doing some research in college too, because I want to apply to some like top universities for grad school. Even if I don't go, I really want the option to turn them down. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but in my head it does, of just get to the top of your given class of whatever your institution you're working within, and then decide what you want, because then you've kind of proven to yourself that you can do that much. So that's a little bit of a tangent. That's not really a question. I don't know if I explained it that well, but
I kind of understand what you mean. You basically just want to get to like some sort of status that proves to yourself that you've achieved something, and then go on and achieve something higher. Right. It's kind of like stepping stones, is what you mean?
Or not, to put it differently, yeah, because you did put it better. Achieve something, but before you're going to change the game, achieve something. Or maybe it doesn't have to be 100%, it doesn't have to be the best. You don't have to be the CEO of Facebook before you can start your own company. But before you're going to rock the boat, you should at least like climb the institution that you're currently within. So yeah, that's kind of what you talked about. And before you go and do your end-to-end project and kind of forget the internship grind, you should get a good internship.
I think like that would be personal advice for me. But I do know of people like they just dropped out, and then they've built really great products that eventually turned into really great businesses. So, I mean, it really depends on the person. But for me, I guess like the advice for myself would have been like, okay, after I've gotten those big internships, instead of just dicking around, maybe I should have worked harder in school or something, or worked harder on a project, end to end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And when it does come to applying to these internships, and I know we've talked a lot about it so far, but something that comes to my mind, something that has kind of revealed itself to me, is it seems really simple. I don't want to say easy, because it's not easy. It's a lot of work, but it seems really simple to get a good internship. I'm kind of piecing together things that have been said by other people. So like Clement Mihailescu says, to work at Facebook or Google or whatever, you need to get the coding interview, and you need to pass the coding interview. So to get the coding interview, you need projects and work experience, and you can't get work experience without doing all of this already. So if you're starting out, you need to build projects and, grind on LinkedIn, or have a YouTube channel that documents your progress, something that makes you unique. And to get the coding interview, you just got to learn data structures and algorithms and grind leak code and switch careers and algo expert and whatever service you're using. Is it really that simple? Like, what am I missing? Because it seems so formulaic that as long as I'm willing to just like put my head down and put the work in, I should be able to achieve, and anyone really should be able to achieve it.
I think I agree with that 100%. I do think it is very formulaic. You basically just follow a path. Everything's already laid out for you. It's a path that many people have taken already. So it's not like you're trying to discover like a new antidote for cancer or something. You just need to follow the footsteps of those have walked before you, or something like that. Whatever the saying is. It's basically very formulaic. You just need to get projects on your resume. You need to apply. Don't be afraid of rejection. Once you've applied to many jobs, you'll probably convert at least some of them, and then out of those few interviews, you just gotta be prepared. And then ace them all.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think that's about one more thing. Specializing. That's the one other question that I really wanted to make sure I asked you. When it comes to specializing in software engineering, when does that come into the picture, and kind of how did you go about it? I don't know exactly what you are at Facebook, front end, back end. So does that kind of come in when you're doing your internships, you discover it? Do you have a couple years after you graduate college and you get into one of these companies? Do they let you kind of explore where you want to specialize in? So how does that work as far as specializing in software engineering?
Yeah, so basically Facebook encourages all engineers to be really good generalists. They encourage you to switch teams if you don't really like your team or you feel like you don't have enough career development. So pretty much as an engineer at Facebook, you could be a really good breadth engineer. Like you've worked on infrastructure, you've worked on back end, you've worked on front end products, like mobile products, web products. But basically, sorry, there's a motorcycle outside. I don't know if you hear that. But basically, they want you to solve problems, and that's the real goal of working as a software engineer or working as any engineer. I think you're there to just solve problems, and coding is just a tool to solve those problems. The problems may look different in different areas, but in general, Facebook encourages to be a specialist. But on the other hand, there are very good specialists, like specialists in distributed systems that work specifically there to help power some of the very, I guess, like niche problems relating to how Facebook scales out all their systems. But overall, I think most people I'd say are generalists. There's people that have worked on front end, there's people that have worked on back end. And if you really want to specialize early in your career, just be sure that's something you really, really want to do for a long time. But yeah, in general, I think there's a lot of options to explore, especially early on in your career at these big tech companies. And I'd say at startups too, just because you have so many more responsibilities. You probably have to do everything at a startup all at once.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what I want to specialize in. I'm not as...
You have a lot of time.
Yeah, but I'm young. I'm 19 years old. I am a semester into college, and then I dropped out because I'm transferring somewhere else. So
you can't even drink legally yet.
No, I'm still
not in the U.S., but in Canada you can.
Yeah, I've never drank before, actually, even illegally, and I would tell the truth there if I
really
if I had. Yeah, no, I've never done it. Just doesn't interest me. But yeah, I do these. I'm doing this kind of exploratory stuff. I did the front end. I did the machine learning, and I'm doing the data structure and algorithms, and I'm starting to do the back end. And the thing that I like the most so far is easily data structures and algorithms. I actually really enjoy learning about learning about everything and doing the different problems. But that's not really a career. That's just interviews. So it's useful, but we'll see where that goes. I'm sure there'll be other stuff that I like it all. We'll just see what the final thing becomes in the years to come.
I do think there are some roles that really encourage you to know your data structures and algorithms really well, especially in areas where you're working with the database. Not like working with a database, but actually implementing the database itself. So like if you work on like MongoDB or if you work on like MySQL, those databases, you'll probably have to know your algorithms really well. But yeah, I haven't done that myself, but that's what I've heard.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And I think that's an hour. Pre-edited, that's an hour, so maybe 45, 50 minutes.
All right.
Cut some stuff after I cut some stuff out.
You think a 40-minute video would be too long?
No, it's a podcast. I might release it in 2 parts.
Okay.
But I've done podcasts on my channel before, and they've done about the same as my other videos. Yeah, but I'll probably do 2, maybe even 3 parts, just so I could really kind of milk it and also have content for a while, because it's good content. So I won't mind releasing it in a few parts. I'll do a little intro. I'll probably have me in front of the camera, just me introducing each section. I'll probably cut up the questions by topic, or we'll see what I do in post. I'll edit it together.
Okay, cool. What do you use for editing?
I use Premiere.
Oh, nice. It's expensive though.
It is expensive. Well, actually, there's kind of a hack. If you can get it half off pretty much always. If you, huh?
As a student or?
No, if you go to cancel your subscription, they will give you, like as a last ditch effort to save you, they'll give you a half off coupon for like 6 months. So I did it 6 months ago, and then they started charging me double what I was paying. So the normal subscription of like $60 a month or whatever. And I was like, all right, no, screw it. And I went to cancel, and they were like, wait, we'll give it to you for half off again. And I was like, all right, so you're just gonna give me, so it's half off. You just gotta hit cancel, and they'll give it to you for half off.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah. So now that we're off air,